Hello?
Hello.
Okay, hi Laura. This is Christina Salinas from We Are the Voice for the Silenced and Afflicted. Welcome to our show.
Thank you for
Um,
having me.
no problem. We usually have Brandon Moses on here. He's usually the host of the show, but unfortunately he cannot make it.
Okay.
Um, I would like you to introduce everybody to Laura Thompson. She has been acquainted with Kimberly Lau, who is Congress in Virginia, as well as Connie Rogoli,
Mhm.
who also is an advocate in Tennessee, which we are all wonderful, strong women that are trying to fight the same exact battle for family court and CPS reform.
Yes.
I also wanted to remind people that there is a petition online for care2.com that I have come up with myself designed to protect specifically domestic violence and child abuse victims. So please check that out. Laura, I'm going to give you a chance to voice what you need to say. Hopefully, the audience, if they need to respond or comment, should show up in the link underneath.
Okay.
So go ahead, Laura, and thank you again for joining our show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You want to know something, Tina? I was thinking before this, we started this, because this is not the first time I've told my story, and it's really sad because I don't get no closer to getting them babies out of foster prison. I don't get them no closer to getting them out. And it is heart wrenching. It is a pain. It is a physical heartache that you can feel it.
Right,
And so the only thing that I feel like I have is my voice and their story.
right.
So thanks for having me first of all.
Of
And
course, Laura.
I mean, do you want me just to kind of start or explain my
Well, yeah, I'm gonna
situation with?
I'm gonna tell people a little bit. The reason why I pulled you was I believe I seen a viral podcast of yours, which was heart wrenching, absolutely heart wrenching. And I believe you were in a room, and I offhand, sorry, don't hate me for it.
Hmm.
I believe it was your daughter or someone in relation to you, where you were
Hmm.
talking to an attorney or maybe even a
Hmm.
worker, and they were just belligerent and just ridiculous in the talk and in the speech that they had towards you guys. It was terrible.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't realize that in your situation, you're not the actual biological parent, but you are
Mm-mm.
still considered a parent. You are the grandparent, actually, in this situation.
Hmm.
So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to end with that, and you have the floor for an hour. I probably might ask a couple little questions just in,
Sure, yeah.
reference to it. But other than that, the floor is yours, so go for it.
Okay. Well, my name is Laura Thomason, and I live in Jefferson City, Missouri. I'm a grandmother who has been fighting for custody of my grandchildren, fighting. I have been fighting for those children for 4 years now, but fighting with CPS um, for a couple years. But they have currently been in foster care custody. They've been in custody for a while, but they have currently been there a little over a year, going on a year and a half now. And my story is really ironic, so it's hard to believe. And I have a lot of uh, voicemails and different types of recordings that and actually text messages from the caseworker. I have a whole lot of things that would, if the judge would be, fair and look at it, would say, "Oh my gosh, a lot of this stuff is fabricated. These poor kids." But it's not like that. I was working in a company, and I was an integrated health specialist. So what I did was I advocated for families, for kids. It was a behavioral health center. So I'm a recent graduate, delayed, never denied. So I'm like on fire, want to help, want to just get out there and help. And so I advocated very hard for these kids. Well, there's a few occasions where I had to stand up to children's division and the juvenile office, that because they wasn't making the decision in the best interest of the children. And so let's start out with, I've had a very rocky relationship with a certain juvenile officer. And When my grandchildren was placed in state custody, then that juvenile officer ended up being on the team. So I didn't have a chance, from the beginning they were waiting for an opportunity. Um, so I had had my grandchildren on three different safety plans in a different county prior to them actually doing a removal from their parents. I also have a notarized.
Can I ask real quick, if you don't
Sure.
mind,
Yeah.
what
Ask
caused?
questions all the way.
Sure, I will definitely.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
what caused the removal, if you don't mind
Sure.
sharing that
Okay.
between
The
amongst the mother and the children?
substance abuse. My son and their mother suffer from substance abuse. My son is incarcerated at this time. I have stepped in and helped step up. I've helped him get into rehab, and we did this as a family through what they consider safety plans for a good couple years of the children's lives, and they just continue to fall back into addiction. So they even gave their rights. They signed their rights. They said, at this point, at this time, we just ain't ready. We need to get our lives right. And I will say that their mother is it's sober, clean, and she's living in a sober living environment. She's doing really well, but it doesn't matter. They're still going to try to TPR. So yeah, it's just, it's
It
sad.
still seems pretty good though for the parents themselves to seek
Mm,
help. Not a lot of people are willing to do that.
absolutely. Mm,
But it's still very sad and unfortunate for the children.
yeah.
With the case plans that you had, were you originally brought in for kinship care, or how did that actually become established?
Okay, I was the first when my grandson, the youngest one, who's 4, was 3 weeks old. I stepped in because of methamphetamine abuse of their parents, and my at that time I was the one who called Children's Division on my son and his fiance for IV usage, and so at that time I was very vulnerable on what they actually cared about and their priorities. And so I mean, I didn't feel like I had an option. I tried to step in, and my son he was just very sick, which he is very, he's willing to get help. And I believe in rehabilitation. So I believe in mom and dad very much so. And that was one of the problems with CPS, was that I continued a relationship with their parents or with my son, and they didn't like that at all. So their addiction, they have gotten help for their addiction, and I believe that mom, especially, maybe not my son right now currently, but mom deserves a chance. She deserves a chance, but I don't think she's going to get it.
Have you tried to speak to CPS as far as,
Oh well.
yeah, you're like, yeah, kind of been there, done that.
I have sent so many emails. I've got emails after emails after emails, where I've actually even called them out on their job description, the guardian ad litem, on what she's supposed to be doing, and the players, as the actors in this situation, and how they're traumatizing my grandchildren. The story gets really thick. It is very complicated, but at the same time, it's common. I'm finding out my story is not real original. Unfortunately, it's not. So,
The more you get engaged with groups and people, you actually realize how systematic this problem is. And it seems
mhm,
as if it's designed this way for the protective parents slash
mhm,
grandparents or caretaker, what have you,
mhm.
for us to not really be in the children's life as we're supposed to. We're supposed to be
Right.
family oriented, and that's exactly what family court is supposed to be designed for.
Mhm.
And it seems as if they're doing the total opposite. Again, it's very unfortunate. It's very sad for our
Yes.
children, but they have to realize a lot of us are waking up, and
Oh
we're not
yeah.
going to stand for it.
No more.
And exactly. And I think the more that come together and we continue doing these podcasts and telling each other how we feel, even having
Mhm.
groups, for to lean on for one another,
Mhm.
helping each other with the law pertaining to whatever state it is. It is definitely
Yes.
sooner or later going to be beneficial, and
Absolutely.
hopefully we can regain the access we need to be there for the children that we have to. But I'm going to let you continue. Go ahead.
Yes. Um, I was just going to say that the viral video of that's my daughter-in-law, where the attorney is saying that they do not like grandma and they're going to fight like hell to keep the kids from her. And she cries and begs them to put the kids in my care because they had just recently been abused in the system. And they were actually removed from the foster home. So the actual abuse happened and now they're continuously covering it up. They have covered up so much stuff, that so many acts that I could be really dangerous to them. I mean, they've covered up a lot of stuff, and I've got a lot of proof of all of that. And so, like the caseworker, when my grandchildren had been seeing a counselor that the caseworker had recommended, it's counselor that they recommend. Well, there was something about him, and I could discern that there was just something about him, and so I checked into it and I found out he wasn't a play therapist. So I had was concerned and wanted to take him out of that services and put him in a different service. And
Now, at this
they,
time, I'm sorry, were you a guardianship?
I
Did you
was
have
at,
any guardian?
no, I've
Okay.
never had guardianship. What I've had is they made us get licensed, me and my husband, as foster parents at two places. The grandkids had been with us on three different safety plans. They had been technically up until they took them and placed them in foster care, in outside of the family. We had had them dominantly their lives. So just on and off. We just kept going back and forth with mom and dad
So you just
and
felt
grandma.
legitimately you should have the right, which you should, to make those type of decisions, especially
Right,
when they don't feel deemed fit for
right.
protecting the child.
Well, Tina, this gets really ugly. The counselor was investigated for some type of misconduct. And I have the text message that says that he is temporarily suspended from seeing foster children until further notice. And then when they cleared him, they wanted me to take my grandchild back there. I refused to do that. That is pretty much when the power struggle began in the FST meeting. They found me complicated and combative. I My grandchild was questioned at daycare. I picked him up, and the daycare center said, there was a woman here that spoke to your grandson today, and she was not his caseworker. And so I said to him, did somebody see you today? And he said, yeah, a lady came and asked me about him, Carl, pulling up his pants in the bathroom. And I just said, I looked at my grandson and I said, did you go to the restroom with him? And he said, no, Grandma, he was finished. He was done, so he pulled up his pants. So I took them home at that time because I'm a counselor and I know that you do not question a child further than you let it. So I brought them home to their grandfather and I marched my ass down to their agency and demanded to know what happened. So they beat around the bush, said they didn't have to tell me anything because it's an open investigation, but my grandchild was not considered a victim, but he was collateral. I said, what the hell does that mean? Like, what does that mean? So at that time, I became combative toward them and their plan.
Of
And
course, as you should.
mhm, I did. And so it was within 2 months after that that they had came in my house, and I told them I felt like it was a conflict of interest because I worked alongside this juvenile officer, and it just felt like a conflict of interest. They told me they were considering removing their grandkids because I hindered reunification with their parents. I told them they're not taking my grandkids. They left my house. The next day, they took them from daycare.
Wait a
So,
minute, wait a minute. So
yes.
without your knowledge, you weren't
Mhm.
called or no message or
Mm-mm.
nothing. They just went to the
No, they took
daycare.
them. They took them. They called me, and they said we have taken physical custody of the kids. Um,
Can I
we
ask how old they are by any chance?
Yes, they're at this moment they're 4 and 6.
Oh my
So,
God, they're babies. I mean,
hmm
not that it's any better at any age, but Jesus, oh my God, I can't even
hmm
understand emotionally how those poor kids could have felt.
they've been in 4 foster homes in a year as well, and abused in one for sure. Abused in one.
And no reunification or a
Um,
request for you to have them yet.
no, I went in front of the judge twice, but because I speak out, I've completely made enemies out of them. When my grandkids, I went by all their rules, and when I realized I wasn't going to get my grandchildren back, and my grandchild I got abused in the foster home, that's when I started speaking out publicly. And then it just got really, it, I knew I wasn't getting them back, but it has seriously gotten worse. The more I speak out, the further away from them I get.
Now, can I ask how long has it been since you've actually seen the grandchildren, your
Over a
grandchildren?
year.
So typically, when children are put in the system, it's I think they have like a 2.5, 2 year time frame before they try to adopt out. Have they
Hmm.
made that suggestion yet, or even brought it to the table?
Yes, August, the end of August, the mom goes to court, and they're gonna TPR, and they're gonna try to do permanency placement at that time.
So,
So,
is there any way, and I'm just wondering, is there any way, being the fact that you are the grandmother, and that is brought into, because we already know that unfortunately the biological parents are unfit, clearly. So we know what the outcome unfortunately would be if they were to go to a placement planning is the courts would automatically probably fine them for, yes, the children would be adopted out. Is there any way within that happening you would still be able to maybe appeal the courts and make it?
well, I went in front of the judge twice on a motion of interest, two different times. He stuck with the juvenile office, and he stuck with the CPS recommendations. He took me off as a party to the case so that I could not appeal. And
So
no,
they've excluded you completely, basically.
completely. As the state of Missouri is concerned, I am no longer their grandmother. So, and me and my husband is pretty much who they had for the first, early years of their life. So very, very traumatizing. They love, even though we were the, dominant caretakers in their life a lot, their parents were at times clean, and they were really good parents, when they were clean. So, um,
People don't realize when you dabble into drugs, unfortunately, it's just like a mental illness. It can eat away at you, and you could be, very clean and, living a great life
mhm,
for quite some time, and then all of a sudden something can hit. It all depends
yes,
on actually how much somebody can take, and
absolutely.
what they can handle in life. And
Hmm.
sometimes it could be something small to us, but to them it might be something very drastic that could cause
Absolutely.
them to go back and rehash. And it's very sad because you would think it, and I wouldn't say a normal person, but somebody outside of a situation that doesn't know the problems with dealing with addiction would say, well, geez, why don't they just clean themselves up and get their kids back so they don't have to live in the
Hmm.
system? It's unfortunate it's not that easy.
Right.
And the courts aren't going to look at it as that easy
No.
either. So, I mean, it's
No.
very disheartening, and I am so sorry, and my heart breaks because you have tried and tried and tried. But I see it has not stopped you at all because
No.
I see quite a lot of your podcasts out there. So I definitely
Yeah.
commend.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like if I'm not fighting, I'm falling apart because, I mean, when I say it's I'm just sitting here getting all of the paperwork ready for this interview just to kind of go over it and refresh my memory. And, I have like a letter from the Office of Child Advocacy when I turned them in that is actually in my favor. And
Wow.
yeah, but when we were in court, they had another letter that was not in my favor. So there's two totally different letters that went. And the thing is I'm not sure if that came from advocacy or if the juvenile office did that. I don't know. There's absolutely when I went into the courtroom the second time, and that was after the the conversation with the mom's attorney that you heard the video, and I can play it after
Yes.
this when I play this. I'll add it to this or something when I share it.
Sure.
But she that was after they were abused, and that was right before the last court date. And when I went in there, they had the juvenile office tried to have the judge put a gag order on me, but he couldn't do both. He couldn't gag me and remove me as a party to the case.
See,
So
I never understand that when I hear a lot of people say that they have a gag order on that. Isn't that another violation of our constitutional rights?
absolutely is, but they do it as they do it, and they put people in jail for it. When they break it, they arrest grandmas, they arrest moms. I know a grandmother here in my area that has a restraining order against her, literally, because she has fought
Unbelievable.
for her grandchildren, and they put a restraining order against her. So it's is really corrupted. The courtroom is really corrupted, and they don't seem to care. So going over their head is the only thing that we can do, and that's kind of what my plan is. I can't hear you. You went out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can
Oh,
you hear me
there.
now?
Yep, I can hear you now.
We have the Judicial Committee, which is supposed to oversee these judges if they are not upholding the Constitution or the oath that they took,
Hmm.
to protect these children or families or what have you. And even in the Judicial Committee, I have seen and witnessed for myself that there is a lot of corruption in there. And
Hmm.
if we don't have people that are willing to oversee them as well, it's like you got to constantly rise to the top. Okay, who's over this person and who
Hmm.
oversees this person and what have you.
Yep.
But we're not exposed to that personal information. We're not exposed to those resources. And that's what keeps us at a disadvantage. And that's what keeps us silenced, which is very
Hmm.
unfair, for the many victims that are out there.
Right. Well, they literally will threaten parents. I have networked with a whole lot of other families going through this, and they will they completely are afraid to speak out because they will, like with my daughter-in-law, they said if I didn't remove this one recording down, which I ended up removing it, that she was no longer going to be able to go to her own FST meetings. Like it's the family support team meeting. Like family is the key word there, but not really. They would threaten, and people are afraid. People are afraid to step up. They're afraid that they will step in and take their children, and they can do it so easily that, I mean, I just recently found out that a lot of the Amber Alerts that are out there are actually parents that run off with their kids, from CPS. CPS puts, let's just say CPS puts out probably 80-90% of Amber Alerts. So that's a lot.
It's sad that a parent has to result to that thinking that it would help and be beneficial when
Hmm.
it actually makes the situation
10
10
times
times worse.
worse.
But as a
Yes.
parent and as a concerning parent, like that is the first thing you want to think of doing is I'm going to take my kid and you're not going to because
Right.
we as parents, although we have rights, they have literally been stripped from us. You
Hmm.
know, when we're in the courts, and a lot of people can give so much advice as far as what to do, what not to do, what have you, when you're in front of that judge, it doesn't matter who is advocating for you or what group you're involved in or who likes or shares your pages. Because
Right.
ultimately, when it comes down to it, that judge unfortunately is in power. I
Hmm.
have experienced myself, and this is when I actually started waking up and I was in just disbelief. I had to fire 3 lawyers, unfortunately, but
Hmm.
the judge would have such control over them, and they're more worried about their future cases
Hmm.
in their statu quo instead of actually standing up for what's right. And it is very intimidating because the
Yes.
judge will threaten to take your child away from you if
Yes.
you don't abide and shut up. And what are you going to do as a parent? You have no
Right.
choice but to say, okay, the red
Right.
carpet's rolled out for you. We'll do everything you want us to do. But again, there has to be some type of justice. Now, in your case,
Yes.
this is so sad because some people do have the opportunity to fight, and you have
Hmm.
literally been ripped completely.
They also said that because I had spoke to children, or not children's division, the daycare center, about things, that I broke their confidentiality, because I posted pictures on them that I broke their confidentiality. I mean, it was just one thing after another of ignorant, fabricated, stupid stuff. And it was just the thing is that the judge, okay, when the children were removed from the abusive foster parents and placed in another home, then the judge, they did not have to tell the judge where my grandchildren were at. They did not have to tell the judge what was going on. They told the judge it is an open investigation. So nobody ever found out what happened in that case, which there's pictures that are out there that I have, I'm in possession of the abuse. So it's it's just, and they just continue to um, place them in different homes, 4 homes in over a year, a little over a year. That's just way too many homes. I mean, that's traumatizing when they have a perfect home to come to. It doesn't make sense.
Most definitely. And is there any other family? Like, I'm just kind of wondering,
That
is there any other relation to these children that could
uh,
maybe vouch up and say, hey,
they have my sister, very prestigious. Her husband own a couple businesses. They've adopted a child already. Have stepped up. They refuse to take the children and place them with anybody in the family. And a lot of that has to do with when my sister and him stepped up, was just about 2 or 3 months ago. And they said something about why didn't she step up sooner? And she said, because this is not going in the direction that it needs to go. There's no reason why you should have taken my nephews from their grandmother. So I feel as if I need to step up, and I am family and I am certified and I want to take them. And they turned them down as well. Because it is a corrupted little city and they don't care. So they just laugh in your face like we don't have to do anything. The judge told me even if I had $100,000 attorney, it didn't matter. If the juvenile office didn't want me to have the children, I wasn't getting the children. So,
definitely telling you the truth right there. Definitely. I had a lawyer literally explain the same exact. There are parents out there with loads of money and they waste it and waste it. But again, we talk about ultimately when it comes down to it, it's the judge's decision. So it
mm-hmm.
doesn't matter if you have a high paying lawyer, low paying lawyer. It really doesn't matter. Depends
Doesn't
on the
matter.
judge. And if there's a biasness in the court, in continuance of misconduct, unfortunately, because they have become comfortable and conformed in this behavior and they have gotten away with it for so long, it will continue. And it's
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate. Um, was there ever originally letters sent out? Because I know dealing with the kinship care, they're supposed to actually contact people. And I know you tried to say that you felt you were in their best interest, which you're right, every should be
Right.
because you were there. You were the first one there in their
Right.
lives. But was there any ever a letter sent out for kinship care?
To other family members, no. No, the family members that stepped up independently. They did not. They weren't invited in. No. Um, it is what I mean. The best thing that I can say is that the only hope that I feel like that I have literally is hoping that I can make it better and pray for my grandchildren, for other kids, because it has gotten that far. And I have an acquaintance who took it all the way to Supreme Court, and her case was very strong, but still not even as strong as the evidence that I have. And she lost because they said they can't, they're not going to override the local authority, either, judicial system. So
So it's back to the accountability, basically. And a
being
lot of these
accountable.
judges, yeah, a lot of these
Mhm.
judges are, they get a little pass for that. And that's where a lot of the corruption is coming in, and something needs to change because if we have rules and they take an oath and it's placed there to make sure that you're abiding and following by these rules, they should be doing just that. You know, there are situations that you would see parents that would take advantage of something like that, and I can understand them um, maybe not looking at the case properly or accordingly, but when you have as much evidence and documents as yourself or such as many other parents that I have seen, you're not talking
Mhm.
out of your ass, excuse my French, but
Right.
you're not talking out your behind. But anyways, it's there. You would think that they would appropriately and adequately handle these cases in such a manner to where we would go, it's not just about somebody wasting our time in court. This is sincerely about the severity, health, and well-being of these children. And it doesn't seem as if these are being put into consideration at
Right.
all. And even as far as CPS is concerned, a lot of people, I've seen a lot of recent posts where they want to tear them down. I do
Right.
have some conflicting feelings about that because there are some kids that do get
That
saved, and
just
then there are
yeah.
many that, yeah, that aren't. So
Yeah, actually, I have conflicting feelings about that as well because there seems to be situations that um, need some form of intervention. I don't know if they've gotten complacent, apathetic. I don't. I want to believe that it's not about the money, but it just goes to show over and over again that it is about the money. And just like any other business, CPS has to have a supply and demand, and unfortunately, they in Missouri they're increasing the money that is going to be going out to permanency placements. So that's just great, because I'm not saying that people at Foster don't need to have some form of help, but the incentives are the money's just getting bigger for that solution there, foster care.
it's exactly that. Exactly what you just said is it's an incentive and it's more like bribery actually.
Yeah.
And a lot of these foster parents, don't get me wrong, there are some very good foster parents.
Hmm.
I was raised in the system myself, so when I heard Connie Rigoli talk with you the other day on your podcast,
Hmm.
it kind of hit home because exactly what she said about generational genocide and generational curses, it's more of a generational harassment.
Hmm.
My parents came straight off the boat. And as soon as they came over here, they had five siblings of their own and they were all snatched. And then when they had children, I mean, it just goes on down the line. And it's kind of really upsetting
Hmm.
because you would hope and pray that some of these adoptive parents and these foster care parents wouldn't care just about the money. They would really care about bringing into these children and understanding psychologically what it's doing to them just to be ripped from their own home, let alone anything else. They're innocent children. But it seems the more cases, the more that we're talking not just about family court and CPS, the more cases that are going viral about foster children and adoptive care. And exactly what you just said, it's money that's being put in these people's pocket and it is destroying children's life. And the same judge that will put this child in foster home or rip them away from a good home instead of giving them the proper resources to reestablish or, rehabilitate that family, when that child grows up, that same judge will turn around and say, "Well, you're a menace to society." And
Absolutely.
now this child is misunderstood, misjudged,
Bad.
and not properly diagnosed or properly taken care of, and then it leads to incarceration, or at least, and it's just a repetitive cycle over and
Hmm.
over again. We
Yes.
could stop that as caretakers,
Yeah.
and if CPS was replaced, I guess I can see a resource to where the funding can go to. If a woman's in domestic violence situation, give them the proper resources. That's why they're scared. They're not going to call you and say, "I'm in a
Hmm.
domestic violence situation," when they know you're going to snatch their kids from them.
Yes.
If someone's an addict, give them the proper time frame. And I'm not saying, believe me, I'm not saying that just because someone's in there doing methamphetamines or shooting up that they should
Right.
keep their kids by at all means. But
Right.
there are some people that do kind of slip and have things that go through life and that have a dramatic change, but there can always be that one thing that could really help them and save them.
Hmm. Yes. I always say caseworkers, well, Children Protective Services as a whole has the opportunity to be heroes in families' lives. They have that opportunity, and it's really sad that they end up being nightmares. You know,
I honestly don't know how they can sleep at night with themselves.
I don't.
And
I literally have after you go to a moment of desperation. Like you get emotional. Oh, look at you, you're emotional. Well, of course I'm emotional. You basically have just expelled me from my grandkids' life completely. They are being traumatized repetitively, and it's of course I'm emotional. Of course I feel this. And so,
that's another thing,
I,
actually. The courts make it seem as if we as normal caretakers are not allowed
oh
to
yeah,
have emotions, or else
no,
then you're deemed unfit.
yeah,
And
definitely,
we're
yep,
humans. I mean, what the hell? You just ripped our hearts right out of us. What do you
hmm,
expect us to do? You
yep.
know?
And I don't know how they handle it. Like I don't know how they sleep at night. I don't know how they function. I don't know how they kiss their kids, their grandkids. I don't know how when there are so many situations that is unjust for the whole thing, um, for everybody involved is so unjust that I don't know how in those cases they can live with themselves, you know?
Speaking of which, I think I seen a video. It might have been maybe one of your first videos where you had confronted a CPS worker. I
Called her
definitely
potato
was
chip.
rooting for you then.
You called her a potato chip eating.
Could I ask what happened in that scenario
Oh my
prior
gosh.
to the video, if you don't mind?
Yeah. My I just got emotion struck it, and if I can there's been so much that's happened. I'm trying to think, and I've had so many live videos, but I think it was when I found out that they were going to go ahead and CPR, sorry, TPR their parents' rights, even though mom was trying to get her life right. They had told mom she couldn't talk to me no longer because if she can talk to me, if she talked to me, she wasn't going to be able to see her children. So my only outlet to know how my grandkids were was silenced. And so I was very angry and very upset, and they had said in court not to say no names, because they could say, oh, harassment. And so I was
Defamation of
I was
character.
sure that I was going to scream some names out. So that's what I did.
Was there an order of protection or something? Or this is just something this rude and obnoxious caseworker was spewing out at the mouth to you because she just felt she was empowered, I guess, at
She
that
is
time.
was a power tripper, and then she quit, and there's another caseworker who's just as bad. But I don't know if it's that they're convinced that they're doing the right thing. I have no clue. I want to believe that they can't just not be convinced, because I can't believe they would uh, be intentional. I don't know.
Her behavior alone, and you would think that they would be trained
Hmm.
and educated, I guess, to dealing with parents, because what parent would be excited about you
Hmm.
removing their child?
Exactly.
But her behavior alone and her response to your confrontation and sorry, you confronting her, um, I was appalled, and I was just like, even as a human being, she was so heartless. How could she
Hmm.
not understand your frustration and your pain of what you were going through? And instead, it was more of like, get the F out of my face. You're like a street urchin to me, and I can care less about your feelings. I'm going to go
Hmm.
home and eat my steak dinner and call it a night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was disheartening, but a lot of people
Yeah.
are like that, and these are the people that are in charge of safely removing our children or safely putting
Hmm.
them somewhere where we're supposed to trust and
Exactly.
engage
You
and
know,
continue engaging with them.
yeah, foster children are like 6 times more likely to die. They are twice as more likely to be sexually abused. They transition out of foster care and end up more likely to be trafficked than the average, transitioning age youth. It's a mess. Like it's a mess, and CPS is needs to be accountable. But the only thing I can do, I feel like that just continue to speak out, and every opportunity I get, network and try to raise awareness and get enough people that are not personally affected awake to see what's happening. They say there's a shortage of foster cares. How many cases out there are like mine? You know, Lots, thousands, where there
Exactly.
is grandparents or kin that can take care of that child and love that child, and it means something to a child, to have that connection, that bond. They tear their heritage. They just completely disregard their heritage.
Yeah, and I can tell you, as growing up as a child in the system, it is very heart wrenching because as you're growing up, you don't really pay too much close attention to that. Um, but as you get older, like I've always had people ask me, what ethnic background I was, and I didn't know until I finally went on Ancestry.com. Um, I was ripped away from my mother at a young age, but never knew my father. When I finally
Hmm.
did find her, she was dying of cancer, unfortunately. And she wasn't suitable enough to speak to. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I couldn't engage in a proper conversation with
Right.
her. So it was very sad and disheartening. But it rips away from you as a person because you don't know who you are, where you come from, what the rest of your extended family is, and who
Hmm.
might have or could have been there to save you.
Absolutely.
Um, it's heart wrenching. It's absolutely heart
Yes.
wrenching.
My last visit with my grandchildren, my grandson said to me, Grandma, ever since you left me at daycare, I've been bad. And I just told him I would never leave you. I did not, Grandma did not leave you. I would never leave you. So, and that was the last visit. They said it was unproductive. So they discontinued visits. Just cold turkey, completely cut them off.
Yes, they literally just rip them away from you with no reunification afterwards. And the
Mm-mm.
parents unfortunately seem as if they're not willing to, or maybe
Well,
it's just too late for
it
them
might be
to.
just too, I think it's just mom, you know, it's kind of late, you know what I mean, in the game for her to do the steps that she's doing. But to me, I feel like that doesn't matter because that's her children, and she's doing what she needs to do, and she's been doing that for months now, which is great progress to me, and I'm not always, me and mom don't always get along, but I have to
You're
call
her
it as it
mother.
is. And yeah, and she is doing what she's supposed to do now. And I think that, yeah, it's too late. I'm pretty certain that that's what's going to happen is they're going to terminate parental rights in August. So
What are her feelings if you guys have spoken lately about, the whole deal or even her might in having the chance to losing her children? And also, has she bothered to engage in with the events and with the people that you have tried to raise
mhm.
awareness for your family?
No, they have her scared to death. She's not going to talk out, speak out. They have told her if she speaks out that she will not see her children. Like she will not see them. So
So,
she stays you know, in the background. She doesn't ripple. She doesn't cause no kind of heck for them. She is completely controlled by them, right now, and is doing, even though that some of the requests of them is kind of unethical and definitely against our constitutional rights. Um, she's honoring that, so she stays pretty much out of the spotlight. So
so it's got to be a little emotional too for herself knowing the mistake. I
absolutely.
mean, as a parent deep down inside, even though we do have our own faults and
Hmm.
our flaws, I can't even imagine maybe what she might feel to understand that, these children might be adopted out. And once they are adopted out, there is no chance. Does she have frequent visitations as of right now
She
yet
sees
still
them
or no?
1 hour a week. She gets to see them supervised. She is aware that this is possibly going to happen. She still holds on to hope that the judge will not, decide to go along with CPS. But I don't feel real positive about the situation. I think it's going to end in the state taking their parental rights. And the thing is I have an notarized affidavit. Spit it out, Laura. Of them, both parents have signed over their parental rights. They said that they are, and it's notarized and everything, that at this current time that they are not, that although were not capable of taking care of their children, that they surrender all their rights to their grandparent. And it's a five, I don't know, I think it was a 2 to 5 year plan, where we was going to discuss it further. This is just saying we want our children out of foster care and placed back with their grandmother, and we are terminating our own rights to say that we want them with her. But they are in, complete retaliation mode, and they was not going to have that. I don't know if I had mentioned, but they also got me fired from my position As I have that recording. I think I sent you that recording. So, um, if you get a chance, listen to it. I got that recorded as well of me losing my position because of CPS.
Yes, I do have the recording. Like I said earlier, I'm a little new to this. So
Yes.
once I can figure out how to host this a little bit better, like I said,
Oh,
Brandon
you're
usually
doing
does it.
great. You're
I
doing
would have
great,
loved to
girl.
add it. I would
Doing
have loved
great,
to add
girl.
it. I mean, you're welcome to play some of it on the
I,
podcast if you'd like. It's up to
I,
you.
yeah, I don't. It's fine. I don't. I wouldn't. I have to get on download. I would have to log into Dropbox and everything else. So,
It's okay,
but
totally understandable.
yeah, I think a lot of people that have already heard them because I've put them out there in different means before. So I put a lot of them out. I continue to spread awareness and work with other people, other parents and grandparents, and also advocates like Lucinda Pennington and different advocates. Um, there's a lot of people out there that's fighting for this, and I think that if we can just influence one person, they can influence another, and maybe we can get some type of justice, and this can stop because this is madness. This is madness. This is like Connie said, genocide. It's not. I mean, who are? Sometimes I feel like, who the hell do you think you are? Like, who the hell do you think you are to
Yeah.
do this to these children? Like it just. I'm angry. I'm angry, and that's my biggest drive is making this right. And I'm going to continue to fight for my grandkids. I'm never going to give up on that fight. But they're never going to silence me. I'm never going to be silenced because if not us, then who? Somebody has to speak out.
I think the words of encouragement, what you said, pretty much sums up a lot of us that are waking up and a lot of us that are standing up is that anger and that frustration is what's fueling our drive, which is very positive because we could
Hmm.
be steering in a different direction. We could be,
Hmm.
and I don't know if you've seen, I had CPS at my door just the other day, and my point to it was to show how corrupt they will, at a blink of an eye, come at a false accusation that the abuser is making,
Hmm.
but with all the evidence and documents and legal documentation from doctors and hospitals proving that
Hmm.
this child is being abused, they do nothing. And it
Hmm.
angers you even more. But there's other parents that would take that anger and retaliate and do something
Yeah.
different. But we have to realize that
Hmm.
how we portray ourselves and what we do, we have to know that we have to hold that anger in because, like you just said, nobody else is going to fight for our children. And
Hmm.
if we lose it, that abuser or that CPS worker or that family court judge or
Yeah.
attorney or law guardian, a guardian ad litem, or whatever you want to call them, they're the ones that are going to wind up winning ultimately in the long run because
Absolutely.
we lost it. And
Yep.
then they're going to gain
Absolutely.
exactly what they want.
Yep.
So advice to some people that might be watching, and to think that you might not have hope or not believe, the fact that you've made it this far, the fact that you can talk about it, and testimony is key. We need to realize that.
Hmm.
Testimony is key because it lets us know that we're not alone. I don't know how
Right.
you feel, but I know there was one point in time in
Yep.
my life that I did feel like, oh my God, am I just going to shut up and go in a corner somewhere and just let it
Hmm.
go? But just as you, like you're doing with your viral videos and your events, that was something that made me get out of my room. Every weekend my son goes to his dad's, and every weekend
Hmm.
I was taking from my other children, and although they're old enough to kind of fend for themselves, it still
Right.
emotionally was not okay.
Right.
I would stay in my room and I would cry and in the dark, and I just would wait for my
Hmm.
son to come home.
Yep.
So we do have to find a different outlet, even if there is to the point where you might not be able to get your rights. That's not the end. There's a
Right.
reason we all have gone through this, and nobody wants to hear that, but it is very unfortunate. And there is a reason that
Hmm.
we've all gone through the pain that we're going through, and
Yes.
we're all fighters. Um,
Absolutely.
so I'm just with. There was another question for the hearing. I guess I was just going to ask. Do you plan on attending? I know that they have kind of stricken you from the relationship, but do you still plan attending to go to the permanency or temporary hearing or whatever it's called? I'm sorry.
They, yeah, I'm not allowed in there. I'm not allowed.
Wow, they won't even let you in there?
Mm-mm. No, I'm not. The judge said I will not come back in his courtroom.
So family court is actually open to the public, correct?
No,
No, it's not.
not in,
Okay.
I don't know, not here. It's private. It's completely their confidentiality is what they hide behind, but it's confidential because there's minors involved. So,
So are they allowed to have court watchers or advocates?
I brought an advocate in. I brought Lucinda Pennington in there last time with me. Um, they've got, like I said, they've got mom where mom's not going to invite me in. There's no way. I don't think that she should because I feel like it will make it worse for her. And dad doesn't have no say so because he's incarcerated. So at this time, I have the only hope that I have is that they are going to renew mom's plan. That's where we have the hope. And then looking with my sister trying to get somebody else to maybe possibly step in and, help. Um, I don't even know what the next move is. Um, via my advocate, um, I don't have a lot of hope. So just, you know what I mean? This case is pretty much met its end because I've been in court twice with two different motions of interest since they took the kids. And the first time it was kind of a little trial. And then the second time the judge was just pissed off that I was back. Like he had this attitude like I already told you no once. What are you doing in my courtroom again? Like these people are so tired of what it's like they move these cases through like let's move through here.
They're
As you
offended.
heard on the video, the attorney said he's a fair judge, but he does not have patience. That is his weakness. He does not have patience. I don't care. You need to have patience if you're a family court judge. You need to have
Especially,
patience
yeah,
because
especially dealing with
this is
kids.
lives that you are responsible for. It just pisses me off. I mean, it really does. It does. It just makes me insane. That makes me mad. And I let that be the drive behind this and I'm not going to give up. And if anything, when my grandchildren every day, one day they're going to know that every day somebody fought for them. Like every day, you
That's right.
know, um and just have faith in God that he'll bring them back. Something will happen. So,
Well, I think with you doing the podcast as well, sooner or later, and I know it's kind of a long haul, but sooner or later when they get older, somebody's going to grab their attention for them to
mhm.
see that, yes, they did have somebody in their corner, and yes, you
Yes.
did fight your damnest.
Mhm.
Um, can I make a suggestion if you don't mind?
Sure, go ahead.
Would you consider, and it's just maybe it's outlandish suggestion, but I'm just kind of wondering, would you think of giving the letter, and I know your daughter is the one that did it and agreed to it, but do you think of giving the letter to your daughter to take to this hearing, I guess maybe to present it to the judge?
Right. Well, we would actually discuss that not long ago. So, um, the judge said to her when we presented the letter to him, he said, "It don't make no sense. Do you want to give your kids away or do you want them back? Like, what do you want?" And so it stuck her, she's like, well, I want them back, but I'm not, they literally bully her down. Like it's sad. They bully her down really bad, really bad. To
It's
to where she just breaks down crying, and it's sad. It's sad. And they have made it to where I'm no longer a part of that, any of that. So I'm on the outside looking in.
and it's kind of sad actually because something very simple would have been, hey, you do what you need to do it to get your children back, and if you don't want your children and feel that they're best fit with grandma, have grandma go in and file custody for the
Mhm.
children. That would have been such an much easier process. And I know in the beginning you thought that you were looking out for the best interests of your child and seeking child protective services, but it seems as if just by
Oh, it's been a
seeking that,
nightmare. It's been
seeking
a
that,
nightmare. Like if I could take that back, I would take that back. I would never have ever. I would have done my own interventions, which I ended up doing pretty much anyway, on the safety
right?
plans, but I would have helped them without that, you know, being a part of it. But I can't explain it. The only way I could explain watching your child go through addiction is like mourning a child that's still alive, it's rough. And I grabbed on to what I felt like the only resources I had. And I felt like they would offer them opportunity to get rehab and all of these things that they're supposed to stand for. And they don't stand for none of that.
And you found out real quick.
I found out, I found out real quick after the third safety plan. And then well, actually, it's two safety plans. The third time was a removal. Um, and then they had me and my husband get licensed. Everything changed after that. Everything changed. We went from being um, grandma and grandpa to being placement. That's what they call us, placement.
Unreal.
Uh-huh.
Strip that from that the title away from you as well,
They
huh?
took, yep, they take that title. They said, the caseworker told me, I have to look at grandparents and placement as the same. I hope you understand that. And I said, well, it's not the same. So, it's different. It's very different because we have personal attachment to their parent. It's not like, um, it's definitely different. And they don't look at it different. So,
Wow,
yeah.
just unbelievable. So I know you said that you don't know what the outcome. Uh-oh, I think I'm echoing quite a bit. You don't know really the outcome for sure what it is, but
Hmm.
besides them trying to adopt the children out, where do you see yourself as far as what do you plan on doing in the future? I know you said you wanted to continue with the events, but is there anything maybe a bit more detailed that you want to engage yourself with?
Yeah, I'm going to work with Connie Rigoli and start a family forward. Sorry, I got a hair in my mouth. Start the family forward here in Missouri project,
Awesome.
and another young or another woman here in Missouri, Emily, is going to help. So there's actually plans to start that with Connie, and then continue to speak out, and then I'm going to, if they don't renew mom's plan and they do put permanency placement, then I'm going to file again a motion of interest as a move to step in as adoption. And if that doesn't work, then I don't know. I don't know. I have to take it like one day at a time because it's like a roller coaster. It's definitely traumatic for everybody involved. You feel like you're on um, constant PTSD mode. At times you're just going 100 miles an hour. Like, what can I do? What can I do to get my grandkids out of there? What can I do? What can I do? Just constantly trying to find a new solution, something that might work.
Definitely. Would you mind kind of telling us a little bit more about what the Family Forward Project is about a
I
little bit?
wish I could tell you a little bit more about it, but I actually can't tell you a whole lot about it because I just recently spoke with Connie Rigoli about starting it here. I do know that it is based on families getting kinships and stuff like that. So it's advocacy in each state to kind of fight for parents to get their kids back and like parent aid, but not it's not funded by the government or contracted by the government. It's pure advocacy. I really wish that I knew a little bit more about it. Me and Connie and a couple other people are getting ready to have a Zoom meeting and get a little more educated. But you can find the groups on Facebook. So Just look for Family Forward Project and you'll find it.
Well, it all sounds amazing. We're going to start wrapping this up, and it was such a
Sure.
pleasure to have you. I so
Thank
appreciate the
you.
strength that you have behind you,
I appreciate you
and
too.
in the resilience. It's amazing to meet another woman. And no offense, we know there's men out there as well, but it's also amazing to meet another woman that is willing to, no matter parent, grandparent, caretaker, what have you, you were there in these children's life. You definitely felt the need to protect what you did, and you're still standing for their right, and you're giving them a voice.
Yeah.
So I would love to stay in contact with you
Sure.
and know about this program so we can kind of share. I love the fact
Okay,
that they're like
absolutely.
statewide because I think
Yeah.
we need more programs that are available for different
Absolutely.
states.
Yeah.
It was wonderful and it was a pleasure. Thank you so
Yes.
much, Laura. And if
Thank
there's
you.
anything you want to add after we share, you're more than welcome to.
Sure. Okay. All right.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Good night.
Bye, guys. Have a good night.
Good night. Oh, one more question. How do I share this? I just share it. Okay, I see. Copy.
You
Stream
got
link.
it?
Yeah, I do. I do got it. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Have a good night, guys. Bye.
You too. Good night.